There's no kidding that a lot of our woodland areas are in decline. There's lack of species diversity, and we have a responsibility to reverse that situation, and this project is one way that we can do that.
This has been a really successful collaboration because it does link that horticultural expertise that the gardens have that we don't have here necessarily. It links the science so that we know there's a really good genetic background gone into the establishment of the seed production areas, and it's linked the Greening Australia component, which is actually getting that seed back out into the environment, creating new vegetation.
We're desperate to get the information from the work that we've done here out to other people to use, and that has flowed right through the project. And that's made the project all the more engaging, not just for the people that are receiving that information, but also for us working as a team, knowing that we're helping a wider cause. We're here at the Australian National Botanic Gardens to look at the Caring for Country seed orcharding project. We've just arrived at the seed bank, and this is where the growing begins.
So the Caring for Country project, the seed bank has got involved in that. It's a brilliant project for a seed bank to be involved in, because one of the criticisms we get as a seed bank is that we collect seed and it ends up in the seed bank, but where does it go and what use does it have? And this Caring for Country project beautifully demonstrates how seed banks can be used as a tool for conservation and restoration. The exciting part is the people that we're working with and getting a better understanding of the species that we're working with. Not only are we going out and collecting these species in the wild, but we're also coming up with a plan to make sure that we have enough stock of these species on hand to do a really good job in restoring the native grassland that they come from.
We've now come up to the Australian National Botanic Gardens nursery to have a look at the next stage in the project.
The Caring for Country project is a project that aims to bring together a bunch of species in our region and grow them outside their natural environment, produce lots of seed that we can use to regenerate or improve damaged or areas of low conservation value. That involves growing seeds from every plant that in the wild that we can get seed from. And we've gone out and we've done that, and so we've got 406 collections of which we're going to be germinating and growing here in the Australian National Botanic Gardens nursery.
So here we're at the seed production area at the Australian National Botanic Gardens, and as you can see in front of us, it's about to be developed and turned into the area for growing the plants that we saw up in the nursery. You can see beds are being marked out here, and the next phase will be the construction phase where we bring all this together. This material that we've got in here, this yellow material, is a sandstone that we've got in from out near Bundanoon. It's a quarried material, and we keen on using it because it's weed free. That's the main criteria. So it's got no weed in it, so we won't get the issues of the weeds coming up and contaminating the seed that we're going to harvest. It's different to your washed river sand. It's really nice, and it holds moisture a lot better than the other material. So we think the plants should do really well in here.
Without the amount of seed that will come from this project, we wouldn't be able to do the restoration works that we're planning to. So we often get seed now just from remnant populations, but we can't keep doing that as these remnant populations need the seed for their own regeneration and cannot provide enough seed for
for our needs. So the best step then is to gather seed, plant it into a seed production area and produce a whole lot of seed easily, and this will help provide the needs for a lot of our projects in which we're trying to restore areas of grassy woodland understory.
We've come up with this list of species that we need for seed, and in that then we've decided who would be best to grow what, but the Botanical Gardens has grown a lot of the endangered species or threatened species, and we've sort of gone for a lot of the stuff that can produce big quantities of seed. The plants in front of us, the Leucopraeum, the bulbine lilies and the chocolate early, they're all occurring within the ACT, and also they'd go right out to, they'd go to a lot of the surrounding areas like Yass, Gundaroo, and even probably out to Cootamundra and Wagga, some of the species. Normally we're producing small amounts of this. We started off in seed production where we're only producing a few benches of polystyrene boxes filled with potting mix and growing a little bit of seed that way. But what's special about this is the bare numbers, so we're growing up to 15,000 plants here in Aranda in seed production, and roughly 15 at the Botanical Gardens as well. So normally collecting seed can be quite hard on your back, especially the understory plants, if you're down on your knees for hours and hours collecting. So we thought, yeah, well, let's go raised garden bed. So then we just had to search around for something that would suit the project as well. So the mass sort of, almost you could grow vegetables in it. They're sort of one big long beds joined together.
Spent hours and hours and hours putting these things together. Little screws and nuts and bolts, and so fiddly. But we got quite efficient in the end. Me and my husband and just a few others were involved in just putting it from scratch, really, putting it all together. And we got very good at it.
Well, you can see what I'm collecting. So the fluffy heads, when they've ripened, see that's a head that's been already harvested. These seeds have been taken off it. There's a couple where the seeds have reached the fluffy stage, and I can then just pull them off, put them in my bucket.
One of the first hurdles is actually to have the seed at this volume, which is really, it doesn't look like much, but it's actually like a wow factor for us. You don't usually get this volume, and now it's going to be how can we most successfully get this back out there.
A lot of the grassland species that we at CSIRO had been looking at actually had strange chromosome numbers. So their genetic diversity was different in one spot to what it was in another spot. And we were concerned that if we brought all these populations together, then we'd mix these genes up and we might create a bad outcome. So the component that we're doing at CSIRO is basically looking at chromosome numbers in the species that have gone into seed production at the Botanic Gardens and at the Greening Australia nursery. The reason we want to look at the chromosome numbers is because we're concerned that if we bring different chromosome numbers together into a single site, like such as in a nursery, then we'd create plants that are sterile. And the analogy is if you mix a donkey and a horse, you get a sterile mule. So it would be the same for bringing these populations into a single site and letting them reproduce. It's very relevant, particularly for grassland species, which is what we've concentrated on, because grasslands are endangered, and so they're protected by federal and state legislation. And one of the key things we need to do is actually restore them, but we want to do that in a really sustainable way. Well, one of the benefits is we'll know that within this region that we don't have an issue with polyploidy, so that's this chromosomal variation that we might have an issue with, but we didn't know when we started the project. That allows us to expand the region that we can collect from, so that we're not going to the same spots over and over and over again to collect the seed, because it's not just us that want the seed. There's a whole range of organisms that actually rely on that seed for food or for part of their life cycle as well. So we need to leave a certain amount of seed there for them, and we can take a certain amount of seed as well. So that'll stop us keep going back to the same sites over and over again. The seed production area allows us to quality control the seed that we're producing as well. So we know that the best quality seed is now going back out into the environment.
We're at Canberra Airport on the eastern side near Fairburn, and there's an area of natural temperate grassland nearby, and we're trying to take an area of native pasture up to natural temperate grassland with the good offices of Greening Australia.
The airport's one of the few places that hasn't had much fertiliser, hasn't had sheep, hasn't been ploughed. We have some very good patches of grassland left on the airport, and we also have other patches which we're available to work on. So we started small. We've started with 20 square metre plots, sometimes with 2 square metre treatments within those plots, but always looking ultimately to scale up. In the back of our head, we're looking at 9.6 hectares of natural temperate grassland that we would like to restore.
It's certainly a trial site because to our knowledge and to Greening Australia's knowledge, there's been no previous broadacre attempt for natural temperate grassland on the scale that we're doing here. Otherwise we'd be able to do exactly what other people have been doing that's been successful, and we're trialling in this area a number of different approaches to try and find out which is the most practical in a broadacre sense. So we're just looking to see the diversity now.
The trials, in essence, we're trying to mimic the natural processes of burning, and we're also trying to mimic the natural processes of grazing. So it would have been largely kangaroos. We're trying to recreate the bare ground, the intertussock patches, which the wildflowers rely on, and by mowing and actually capturing the grass, we're trying to mimic grazing to stop the grass plants becoming over-dominant, again to allow light and space for the wildflowers.
We can't get too close to the runway system because of all sorts of issues, but I think we're on the pathway to showing how it can be done in a very practical and broadacre way. And Greening Australia have been absolutely terrific in showing and being game to do this, because for a decade we were told this could never be done by others.
I think we're at a really interesting point in terms of restoration of herbaceous communities, whether they're grasslands or grassy woodlands. And there is a lot going on, so I think we're at a critical point.
The workshop we had at the Botanic Gardens was unbelievable. I was overwhelmed by the interest we had. We were sort of anticipating we might get 15 or 20 people, and people we knew. We ended up with over 50 people there, and the cross-section of people who were interested really made us realise how important and how interested people were.
So over the time I've been here, we've been trying to focus the direction of our seed bank and really about our conservation work in the gardens as well, to really look at ACT and the surrounding New South Wales region, which those of you who are here for.
Essentially in the landscape, grasslands and all these sort of species associated with them, they're almost gone. And so if we want to restore those communities, we don't want to be going out there and trampling on them and introducing weeds and putting more pressure than what's already there on them. So we take small amounts of seed from those things, not enough to hurt them. We take them to somewhere like here and we grow them in like a crop. And so essentially seed production is really probably going to be the only way that we're really then going to go back into the landscape and create new populations.
What happens between dispersal and recruitment? So what sort of environmental factors are involved?
Yeah, there's lots of water and lots of good soil.
Although seed production's been done for many years, it's still in its infancy in terms of understanding how to do it properly. People involved in agriculture, we had people from farms and so on from at our workshop. They know quite well how to grow wheat or various crops that have been done for many years. But in terms of seed production for conservation purposes, there's still a lot of things to be answered. Some of them were as part of this project, but also bringing together those people in the workshop and throughout the project means that we all will continue that on and will refine and hone the seed production system.
And I've got a 600-acre property in Murrumbateman. I'm in the higher country area, the sort of predominantly native pasture, hilly country. And I run a commercial Angus breeding operation. And I also have got a fairly close relationship with Greening Australia, and I have a seed production area which I established a couple of years ago. Conservation has been a lifelong passion for me, and it's our way of giving something back to the environment and balancing that with the needs of being a commercial farmer. In my opinion, to be a successful farmer and somebody that's going to have a resilient property for the future, you've got to cast your thoughts into ways that you can protect the landscape. What I'm hoping to achieve, because you're only a land manager or you're only an owner of the land for a very small part of the land's history, I want to leave the land in better condition than what I actually purchased it.
Okay, how do we keep the people that are now very interested in this kind of work, how do we keep them together, and then how do we let them run on with this work? So we've done that in a number of ways. We've set up some templates on what we've done on the particular plants, when we've sown them, when they've set seed, when they've flowered, and so on, as a basic guide so that other people can do their own versions of seed production areas in their own areas, hopefully document what they've done and share that information too, so that we're all feeding into developing a better system.
I think the fact we could partner successfully, that we could actually have seed to show that we can actually do it, and that we've only really just started. So it's like a little snowball, and I guess we want to build momentum and we want to carry that message out. So it's an education and awareness program as much as being able to produce the seed that we can then put back out onto some of these remnants that are in decline.
The other thing we've done is, where would be a forum where people can continue to discuss seed production and biodiversity conservation, both practically and for research? And we're looking at agencies that already exist that have a space for this. The Australian Network for Plant Conservation is one option. Greening Australia is another option. So we're now just coming, as we're coming to the end of the project, we're looking at how that continues on and how we remain in touch and keep this going regardless of resources and so on.